Millionaire's life changes forever when he hears the crying girl's shocking words amidst the pigs. Mark Langston stood at the edge of the rusted gate, his fancy city shoes sinking into the thick mud of his family's old Kansas farm. The wind tugged at his designer coat, carrying the wild smell of earth and decay. This place was supposed to be abandoned, left to rot like the dreams he'd chased from New York to nowhere. But something gripped him, a strange pull deep in his chest, dragging him back to forgotten years and broken promises. He stepped through tangled cornstalks, taller than a man, the stalks snapping underfoot, and the distant clatter of a collapsing barn echoed like a death rattle. The silence here was heavy, too heavy, broken only by the distant grunt and squeal of pigs. Mark's breath hitched. Something else, something human, mixed in with the animal noise. Suddenly, a sharp, frantic cry shattered the stillness. It was a girl's voice, raw and trembling. Cutting through, the sound pulled him forward, his long legs rushing over cracked boards and weeds. Then he saw her, 12 years old, wild-eyed, knees scraped raw, hair tangled with dirt and sweat. She was surrounded by a horde of pigs, snapping and rooting in the muck, but she stood frozen, desperate. When their eyes met, Mark's breath caught. "Please, don't let him find me," she whispered, voice breaking under layers of pain and fear. Mark's mind froze as she began spilling secrets, dark, twisted family secrets that tangled their pasts together like barbed wire. A betrayal so deep, it made his hands tremble. She spoke of violence, silence, and money stolen in shadows, secrets his high-rise world had never told him. Suddenly, the polished millionaire was just a man, choking on guilt, near tears as the weight of years fell on his shoulders. Before he could respond, a shadow moved behind the girl. Cold, hard eyes watching from the gloom. Her uncle, stone-faced and menacing, loomed in the distance. Mark's chest tightened in panic. This wasn't about money anymore. It was survival. The farm that was supposed to keep Mark hidden now felt like a prison closing in. And saving Mia, this frightened, fierce girl, might mean risking everything he'd built. But as their eyes locked again, a hidden truth exploded between them, one that could shatter Mark's identity and expose a betrayal he never saw coming. The question now burned sharp. How far would Mark go when the past refused to stay buried? And could he protect Mia when the man hunting her was closing in with deadly intent? Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. I love meeting all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. Mark's heart raced as he locked eyes with the girl, Mia. She was shaking, and he could feel the weight of her fear wrapping around them like a thick fog. Her uncle was a menacing figure, but Mark pushed the thought aside. He had to focus on her. "You're safe now," he whispered. It felt hollow even as he said it. Could he truly protect her? Mia's eyes darted over his shoulder. "He's coming," she murmured, panic seeping into her voice. Mark turned, instinct kicking in. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the barn. The very ground seemed to shake, and the pigs squealed, scattering in chaotic flight. He instinctively took a step back, shielding Mia from whatever unseen force was closing in. But before he could react, something even more shocking happened. An old, rusty pickup truck screeched to a halt at the farm's entrance, dust swirling around it like a mini tornado. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped a woman with a wild mane of hair and eyes that burned with an otherworldly glow. "Mark!" she shouted, her voice crackling through the air like a live wire. "You need to leave." Mark froze. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Mia!" the woman called, ignoring him completely. "Get away from him!" Mia's wide eyes were glued to the woman, fear and recognition playing across her face. "Aunt Linda?" she gasped. The shift was instantaneous. Mark's mind spiraled as realization struck him like a lightning bolt. This was Linda, the estranged sister of his late father, a woman he thought had vanished years ago into the depths of their family's dark history. His mother had warned him about her, how she was unstable, caught in the web of their family's sinister secrets. But how had she found Mia? What tangled fate had brought them here? "Wait, what's going on?" he stammered, trying to piece things together. "They're coming for her!" Linda cried, eyes flashing with urgency. "The family, you can't trust them." A cold shiver crept down Mark's spine. "What family? What are you talking about?" "That uncle of hers, he wants her back. He'll stop at nothing," she hissed, her hands trembling. As if to emphasize her words, a harsh shout emerged from the distance, echoing like a predator's growl. It was her uncle. Mark felt the air thicken with dread. Mia was not just the scared girl he'd met. The secrets were deeper, darker. They were woven into the fabric of his own life. "No, I won't let him have you," he yelled, adrenaline surging through him. Mia looked at him, her expression shifting. "You don't understand. You're part of it too," she whispered, her voice small yet fierce. "What do you mean?" Mark's voice cracked, the truth swirling around him, suffocating. But before she could answer, a loud crash came from the barn again. The shadows shifted, and out stepped a sinister figure, face shrouded in the dusk. It was her uncle, a relentless storm pursuing them. "Enough of this!" he roared, eyes burning with fury. Just then, the sky opened up with a sudden downpour, drenching everything in darkness. Mark's heart raced. How far would this go? As the uncle moved toward them, Mark knew the stakes had just risen beyond anything he had prepared for. The chilling truth coiled around them like a noose. Would he choose to stand or run when everything began to unravel? Mark's heart raced as he locked eyes with Mia, the fear between them thickening the air. Her uncle was a menacing figure, the kind that made the hairs on the back of Mark's neck stand tall. He forced himself to redirect the panic swirling inside. "You're safe now," Mark whispered, the conviction in his words faltering even as he said them. Could he truly protect her? Mia's wide eyes darted behind him. "He's coming," she murmured, each word trembling with dread. Mark's instinct kicked in just as a loud crash echoed from the barn behind them, shaking the ground like a rumble of thunder. Pigs squealed and bolted, their chaos adding to his rising panic. He stepped closer to Mia, shielding her with his body, his own heart pounding like a war drum. Then the unexpected happened. A rusty old pickup truck whirled into the yard, kicking up a cloud of dust that swirled like a tornado. The door swung open with an ominous creak, and a woman stepped out, wild-haired, boots scuffed, eyes blazing with urgency. "Mark!" she shouted, her voice electric, cutting through the charged air. "You need to leave." Mark's stomach dropped. "Who are you?" he demanded, a mix of confusion and fear pressing down on him. Ignoring his question, the woman turned to Mia. "Get away from him!" she cried with a fierceness that made the hairs on his forearms stand up. Mia gasped, recognition dawning on her face. "Aunt Linda?" Her words were both a question and a plea. The shift was palpable. Mark stood frozen, flabbergasted. Linda, his estranged aunt, the one his mother had warned him about. She'd vanished from their family's life, swallowed by its darkness. But now, here she was, claiming to be Mia's savior. "Stop! What's happening?" Mark stammered, his heart racing with a flurry of questions. "Mia, they're coming for you." Linda's eyes darted anxiously toward the shadows. "You can't trust." Before she could finish, a sinister crash erupted from the barn again. The dark figure of Mia's uncle emerged, scowling like a predator on the prowl. "Enough of this," he roared, and his voice boomed through the rain, echoing off the barn like a thunderclap. Mark felt the air grow cold, the weight of his choices heavy upon him. This was no longer just a family feud. It was survival. Mia looked up at him, fear and determination mixed in her trembling features. "You don't understand," she said softly, the words hanging in the damp air. "You're part of this too." "What do you mean? I don't understand." Mark's voice cracked, confusion twisting his insides. But before she could explain, a shattering sound pierced the chaos. The truck shook, rattling against the wind, and then something flew from the back, silver, glinting in the dim light before crashing to the ground between them. A wooden box burst open, spilling out old photographs and brittle letters. Mark's heart skipped. The faces in those photos, aged and familiar, sent shockwaves through him. His own family, his parents, smiling innocently in front of their farm. But next to them stood another figure, a woman who looked startlingly like Mia, her expression twisted in a knowing smile. "Your mother never told you, did she?" Linda's voice was eerily calm amidst the chaos. "About how you and Mia are connected by blood." Mark's stomach flipped. Something inside him shattered as pieces of a sordid history clicked into place. Every secret he thought had been buried was clawing its way back up. No, she wouldn't. But the connection was there, undeniable. Mark felt the ground give way beneath him, the dark web of family history tightening around them. As each revelation clawed at his mind, the truth grew undeniable. And suddenly, every choice he'd made, every moment spent running from his past, felt like a betrayal. Mark staggered back, disbelief washing over him like cold water. The storm swelled around them, and Mia's face morphed from fear to something more profound, an understanding. "Are you my brother?" she whispered, the words threading the air with a shocking finality. Just then, Mia's uncle took a step forward, eyes gleaming with triumph. "You can't trust anyone, Mia, especially not him." The revelation hung heavy in the air, ripping apart everything Mark thought he knew. Who could he trust now? The darkness was closing in, but as Mark watched Mia's apprehensive gaze, a sliver of hope flickered through the encroaching shadows. How far would they go to protect what family they had left? Mark's eyes widened as Mia's whispered words hung in the air, choking the hope that had flickered within him. "You're part of this too." The weight of her revelation crashed down, and a sick feeling twisted his gut. The shadows loomed around them, but her uncle was already looming closer, eyes full of malice. "No, that's not true." Mark's voice cracked, desperate to push back against a truth he feared was reaching for him. But before he could wrestle with the implications, Linda stepped forward, arms raised as if to shield Mia. "Stay away from her, Paul," she shouted, her voice fierce, slicing through the chaos. Paul's sinister smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed sharpened for a fight. "Why, Linda? You think you can save her? You don't even know what's at stake here." He glanced at Mia, then back to Mark. "You both think you're so clever, so special. Well, guess what? You're both just pawns." Mark's heart raced, confusion swirling like the storm around them. "Pawns? What are you talking about?" With a sudden strange calm, Paul took a step forward, eyes glinting like a predator. "You know, family bonds can be complicated. Mia isn't just some innocent girl trapped in a bad situation. She's part of a legacy, one that you've kept hidden all these years." Mark's breath hitched as Paul spoke. "Legacy? What could this possibly mean?" Linda's face paled, and before she could respond, the sky erupted in a torrential downpour, soaking them in an instant. Mark felt the mud beneath his shoes turn to slick, sliding chaos. Lightning crackled above, illuminating the scene and casting eerie shadows around them. And then, amidst the torrential rain and thunder, an unmistakable wail split the air. It was piercing, raw. It cut through his confusion like a razor's edge. "Help me, please." Mia gasped, eyes wide. "That's my sister." "What?" Mark's pulse quickened. "You have a sister?" "Yes, she's been—" Another crash jolted through the air, causing Mark to instinctively pull Mia closer. He didn't understand how much danger they were in, or why she hadn't mentioned a sister before. But then came the crushing realization. How could he protect Mia when her own uncle was hunting her? Suddenly, Paul stooped, reaching into his pocket. Something glinted in his hands, cold, metallic. "Tell me, Mark, how far would you really go for family?" His finger began to curl around the trigger of a small handgun. Time slowed. Mark's heart raced like wild horses, and he felt the world closing in. He knew he was outmatched, outgunned. But then an unexpected roar echoed through the landscape. A figure surged in from the edges of the barn like a bolt from the blue. "Stop!" a voice boomed, filled with authority and desperation. It was a local sheriff, flanked by 2 deputies, guns drawn. "Hands up! Everyone!" Relief flooded Mark as he turned to face the approaching law enforcement. But then he caught a glimpse of Mia's stricken face, her eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't place. "No, you don't understand," she screamed. The deputies hesitated, confusion rippling through the group. Linda's hand shot out. "No, it's not what it seems." An electric tension filled the air as Paul's eyes darted from Mark to the judgment staring back from the lawmen. Then he laughed, a dark, manic sound, throwing his hands up in mock surrender. "Very well, let's see how you all play this out. You still don't know the whole story, he sneered. With another sharp movement, he turned and sprinted back toward the barn, vanishing into the shadows. Mia, stay close, Mark shouted, instinct screaming at him. But before he could reach for her, she stepped back, her face pale and terrified. I have to go. I need to save my sister, she gasped, her voice so thin it barely cut through the downpour. Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing. Wait! You can't just leave! But the roar of the storm drowned his pleas, leaving him feeling utterly powerless as he watched her slip away, disappearing into the chaos. The weight of secrets hung thick in the air like smoke, and one question played over and over in his mind. What had he lost when he had turned his back on this twisted legacy? Mark felt the ground beneath him tremble as he watched Mia slip into the shadows. No, you can't just leave, he shouted, his heart pounding with the weight of the moment. But Mia disappeared into the swirling storm, a figure lost to the chaos, her fear fueling his own. Mia, he called again, desperation clawing at his throat. The storm roared overhead, drowning out his voice, but he refused to turn back now. Not when her sister was out there somewhere, crying for help. He glanced at Linda, whose face mirrored his own panic. What do we do? But before she could respond, the barn door creaked ominously. In that split second, a horrifying sound erupted. A shattering crash followed by a guttural scream. Mark's blood ran cold. What was that? Paul's voice, venomous and low, snaked through the air. You're all too late. He stepped back into view, grinning, holding something firmly in his grip. It was a small, weathered box that seemed alive with menace, drawing their attention like a magnet. Get away from her, Mark shouted, but Paul just laughed, reverberating around the barn like thunder. I won't let you ruin this family, Mark, he taunted, eyes gleaming wildly. You think you can protect her, but you have no idea what's at stake. Mark took a step forward, ready to confront the man who had haunted their lives for far too long. But then came a sound, not from Paul, but from the barn, a shuffling, scratching noise. The air thickened with tension. What's inside that box? Linda asked, her voice tight with fear. Paul tilted his head, amusement dancing in his eyes. Oh, you'll love this. He tossed the box to the ground. It sprang open, revealing a tangle of old photographs and crumpled papers. Secrets, just like you wanted. Mark's breath hitched as he took a step closer. The photographs scattered in the mud, revealing faces he hadn't seen in years. His parents, yes, but also Mia, and another child. A girl with hauntingly familiar eyes, frozen in time alongside the others. No, Mark whispered, the realization hitting like a punch to the gut. Is that... Yes, Paul sneered. That's your real sister. You've been carrying this family burden all along, and neither of you even knew. Mark stumbled back, the ground unsteady beneath him. No, it can't be. But just as disbelief tightened around him, a figure emerged from the barn. It was small, shrouded in shadows, a slight silhouette drenched in rain. Help! A voice cried, desperate and trembling. Mia! Mark rushed forward, heart racing, but the figure stepped into the light, revealing a girl, or rather, a young woman with the same wild eyes. It wasn't Mia. It was her sister. What? Mark was paralyzed, confusion ripping through him. Who are you? Before she could answer, Paul lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. You're mine now, sweet girl. He bore down on her, an unrepentant predator. No! Mark lunged, adrenaline surging. He felt the mud slick beneath him, the rain pummeling down as chaos erupted. But it was Linda who shocked everyone, stepping between them. "You can't take her! She's not yours!" Her voice echoed, filled with a powerful desperation. Then came the storm in her eyes and sudden clarity. "I'm her mother!" Time froze. Mark's heart plummeted. "What? No, that's impossible." "Yes, I wanted to protect you both. The family was tearing itself apart, and I had to—" Shocking voices fused together. A cacophony of disbelief erupted. The rain poured harder, drowning out everything. "No," Mark breathed, doing the calculations in his mind, piecing it all together. But the truth hung thick in the air, suffocating. "Then who am I?" he shouted, panic rising anew. Linda's gaze fell to the muddy ground. "You're an unwitting link in this dark legacy," she muttered, tear cutting through the rain on her cheek. Mark stepped back, the wedding of betrayal slicing his heart. Mia's voice echoed in his mind, and now he was dizzy with the possibility of blood ties and hidden truths. Fragments of a family he didn't know existed. It can't end like this. Just then the shadows flickered again, and Paul snarled, his hands still clutching the girl. "You can't change what you are." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene. In that moment, Mark felt the world shift. Choices, identities, and family entangled in a bitter knot. Everything he thought he knew rippled away into darkness, and the looming mysteries only deepened. Around him surged a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Yet he had to ask, then what am I? Mark's mind raced, caught between the jagged edges of the past and an uncertain future. Would his blood define him? Or could he change everything? Would he fight for the truth, even if it meant shattering what remained? The storm raged on, but the coming storm of revelations was only just beginning. Mark's heart was hammering in his chest as he struggled to comprehend Linda's shocking revelation. "You're her mother?" he echoed, disbelief clawing at his throat. The rain pounded around them. Before anyone could respond, a deafening crack of thunder ripped through the air. The ground shook, and something extraordinary happened. The barn that had been a backdrop for this chaotic confrontation erupted, wooden beams splintering, and a dark cloud of debris flew into the air. They all turned instinctively, shielding their eyes from the swirling dust and rain. And then, from the haze, emerged a figure, tall and shrouded in shadows, almost ghostly against the flickering light of the storm. Mark squinted, heart pounding as the figure stepped forward. In that equally horrifying and fascinating moment, the truth became stranger than fiction. It was another woman, drenched and wild-eyed. "I'm here, I'm sorry," she cried. And with that, a wave of recognition rippled through the air. "Mia," Mark whispered, clutching his chest. The girl had veered into another world entirely. This was a woman he had never seen before but somehow felt inexplicably connected to. "What is happening?" Linda's voice strained as she nearly collapsed in shock, her eyes darting between the two girls. "Who are you?" The girl moved closer, trembling, eyes wide with urgency. "I'm Sarah. I've come to find you." Mark's breath caught. "What? Find who? Why? What's happening?" "Your sister," Sarah gasped. "They've been keeping her locked up." They thought you wouldn't come back. You have to help her." The implications hit like a runaway train. Mark felt the ground shift beneath him, the truth burning bright and red. "My sister? But how?" Paul's face twisted in anger, his expression darkening. "You're all fools. You think you can just walk in here and save someone? You don't know the half of it." Mark felt the fear curling tight in his gut. "What do you mean? What are you hiding? Stop!" A voice boomed through the chaos as the sheriff stepped forward, authority radiating from him like a beacon. "Everyone, hands where I can see them." The world snapped into focus. The authorities were here, but was it too late? A sharp scream cut through the storm, shrill and piercing, echoing from the barn. "No!" Mark's heart plummeted as he felt an electric jolt of dread. "Mia, what did you do?" Linda shouted, panic lacing her voice. Paul's smirk twisted into something sinister. "Don't blame me when you find out the truth." The barn shook again, then exploded. Flames burst forth, engulfing what was left of the interior. Mark's world spiraled out of control. In that singular moment of chaos, he caught sight of Mia's sister darting inside. Small and brave, but what lay within that barn was a secret buried deeper than any of them could imagine. Mark lunged forward, desperation coursing through his veins. "Mia!" The flames roared as smoke choked the air. Mark felt the warmth on his face. Wasn't this story about family, loyalty? But now, it felt like everything was unraveling. Everything he thought he knew. Was it all nothing but a lie? In the tumult, the memories and truths collided, bursting through the chaos. Would he find Mia before the flames took everything from him? And more hauntingly, what real truths lay hidden? Deeper than he feared, darker than he could understand. As the fire climbed higher, all Mark could feel was the gnawing fear that whatever he found at the end of this storm would change everything he thought he knew about family. Would he still want to save them, or was it too late? Mark's eyes darted around, adrenaline coursing through him as he shouted for Mia again. "Mia!" The barn loomed, flames licking at the night sky, smoke curling and choking the air. The screams fell silent in his ears, replaced by a deafening roar of fire. He couldn't let fear hold him back. He surged forward, each step driven by a mix of desperation and determination. "I'm coming!" he yelled. But with each passing moment, panic gnawed at him. What if he was too late? Suddenly, from the shadows of the barn, he heard a voice. It was small, trembling. "Help!" The cry fractured the chaos, pulling him in like a beacon. "Mia!" He rushed toward the sound, heart hammering against his ribcage. The fire crackled, an angry beast lighting everything in a hellish glow. As he neared the barn, he felt a strong arm grab his shoulder, a deputy. "You can't go in there," the officer shouted over the noise. "I have to!" Mark shot back, eyes wild with fear. Then he saw movement. Mia's sister was standing just outside the glow, her silhouette distinct against the flames. "Get back!" he urged her. But as he pushed past the deputy, ready to dive into the inferno, something strange happened. The ground trembled again. This time, it felt different, urgent. Then, without warning, the barn door burst open, and a cloud of flames surged out like a living thing, consuming everything in its path. The force knocked Mark off his feet, sending him tumbling back into the mud. He scrambled to his feet, fear clawing at his heart. And that's when he saw it. From the chaos, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the flames. Mark blinked, unsure of what he was seeing. It was an older man, wild-eyed but familiar. "Dad?" Mark gasped, disbelief flooding him. "What are you doing here?" His father had been gone for years, lost to a different chaos. "You have to listen. They're coming," he shouted, voice raw and urgent. "It's all connected." Mark's head spun. What was happening? The man he thought was gone was standing in front of him. "Connected," he mumbled, each word feeling heavier than the last. "Yes, all of it. The family, the secrets, and Mia." His father's gaze shifted, locking onto Mia's sister, who was now shielding her eyes from the flames. "You have to tell her the truth. She needs to know." Mark felt the ground slip beneath him again. Truth? What truth? How could any of this make sense? "What are you talking about?" But just then, a deafening explosion sounded from within the barn, sending debris flying into the air. Mark threw himself to the ground. His heart raced even faster, tension cranking tighter. "What is happening?" Mark cried, looking back at his father, who now seemed more ghost than man. "Mia's uncle," his father began, darting a glance back toward the barn as if he could see through the flames. "He wasn't what you thought. He—" The statement was interrupted. Another figure emerged from the dark, unannounced, yet unmistakable. It was Paul, laughing maniacally, silhouetted against the raging flames. "You fools," he cackled. "You think this is about family? No, this is about power, and you're all too late." Mark's stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed that the truth was only getting darker. "What do you mean, too late?" Mark shouted. But Paul just grinned, eyes shimmering with malice. "You've lost. The legacy is mine now. You're just pawns in my game." Paul reached for his pocket, and in the moonlight, a glimmer sparked, a badge. Panic gripped Mark. "You're a cop?" "Not just a cop," Paul sneered, pulling out a gun. "I'm the one who's been controlling the family all along. You're too late to save anyone." The ground beneath Mark shook violently again, igniting a chaotic thunderstorm of emotions. As the tension mounted, he caught the reflections of horror in the eyes around him, including Linda's. "What does that mean?" she cried, voice cracking. But before he could process the shocking turn of events, everything went black. The ground gave way, swallowing the moment, leaving nothing but a ringing silence and a chilling question. What piece of himself had he lost in this twisted family game? Mark's heart raced in that moment of chaotic disbelief. The barn was alive with flames that painted the night sky orange, yet everything felt surreal, like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. "What are you hiding?" he shouted again, the urgency clawing at his throat. Paul stood there, gun in hand, a manic grin spreading across his face. "You're all just pieces on my board, but let's make this more entertaining." He laughed, and that laugh echoed through the gathering storm. Then, without warning, there was a deafening crash as the barn wall crumbled under the weight of the fire. Everything went silent for a heartbeat, a stillness like the calm before a storm. And then, a blinding light shot out from the wreckage. "Look out!" Mark screamed, diving to the ground, instinct taking over. The force of the explosion knocked him back, and all he could hear was the roar of fire and the panicked screams of the others. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. From the blaze emerged a figure, enveloped in flames, yet untouched. Mark couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Mia!" he shouted, struggling to comprehend how she was alive, how she could even be near that inferno. It was her, standing there, eyes fierce and determined. "I won't let you hurt her," she yelled. But as she stepped forward, the flames swirled around her, like they recognized the bond between them. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Was she really unharmed? Had something changed in her? The laughter from Paul died as he took a step back, eyes wide, filled with an understanding that no one else possessed. "I should have known," Paul hissed. "You're not just a regular girl. You're part of this legacy, aren't you? The power, it's inside you." Mia's expression shifted, anger mingling with defiance. "No, I'm more than this messed-up family's legacy," she shouted, her voice strong. But Mark could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. What did Paul know that they didn't? Before they could react, deep within the heart of the chaos came a rumbling sound. The ground shook, like the world was shattering apart. Everything felt unstable. And then, boom! The barn collapsed entirely, a skyward eruption of debris and fire. Mark instinctively reached for Mia, but as he did, the flames flickered and a shadow darted out, colliding with him and pulling him to safety. "Move!" Linda cried, dragging him away from the flames, her face streaked with soot and panic. "Where's Sarah?" Mark gasped, searching frantically in the chaos. But the answer was buried beneath the echoes of rushing chaos. Then it hit him. The shadow of recognition loomed larger than before. "The legacy," he whispered, piecing everything together, heart racing. "Mia, what do you know?" But before she could respond, Paul exploded in laughter, a manic, horrifying sound that cut through the raging storm. "You're too late, Mark. The truth has already changed everything. You just don't know it yet." Suddenly, another figure stumbled from the smoke, eyes wide and blank. It was Sarah, disheveled and gasping. "Mia, you have to listen. The truth," she started, but then Paul surged forward. "Shut her up," he shouted, making a wild grab for Sarah. But Mark had had enough. Everything decorated with the flames felt like it was peeling away, secrets swarming around them. "Stop," he screamed, bravado colliding with fear. "You don't know what you're doing." But then it happened. The chaos grew, and the air shimmered. A moment stretched thin until it broke. With startling clarity, Mia, stepping forward, suddenly unleashed a torrent of energy, a wave of power like nothing anyone had. Was Mia a threat? The connection he had fought so hard for felt pulled away, revealing the unsettling truth of who they both really were. In the shadows of upheaval, who could he trust now? Everything had changed, but the implications were too vast, twisting into an unfathomable question. Was he about to lose everything he fought for? Or could he still save everyone he loved from this newly uncovered darkness? Mark felt the heat of Mia's transformation pulse through the air. There was something powerful, something terrifying about her now. The shadows deepened around them, and every heartbeat echoed like a drum in the storm. "Mia, this isn't you," he urged, desperate to pull her back from the edge. But she didn't respond, her eyes locked onto Paul. The flames danced around her, reflecting in her fierce gaze. "You don't control me." Paul laughed again, a short barking sound that held no joy. "You think you can fight this? It's in your blood." Suddenly, the ground beneath Mark trembled once more. He felt a jolt deep in his bones. It was as if the earth itself was about to split open. Then, in a blinding flash, something shot through the air, ricocheting off the barn. It was an object, sharp, metallic, and glowing. It struck the ground with a deafening crash, sending debris flying everywhere. Mark threw up his arms, shielding his face from shards of wood and glass. When the chaos settled, what lay among the wreckage tore at his heart. It was a large, ornate mirror, edged in darkness, yet shimmering with an impossibly bright light. The sudden glow illuminated the landscape, revealing faces twisted in surprise. And then he saw them, reflections staring back, but not just his own. Mark caught glimpses of Mia and Paul as they stood before the mirror, their expressions caught in a moment of raw emotion. "Look!" Mark shouted, pointing. But as he did, something wild surged from the depths of the mirror. Black tendrils reached out, curling around Paul's feet like snakes. "No, get away!" he yelled. But the shadows pulled him in, wrapping tighter until he was enveloped. "Mia, run!" Mark screamed, searching for her in the chaos. But she simply stood there, eyes locked on the mirror. "I can't, Mia, please. It's a trap." But even as Mark shouted, he felt something cold grip his heart. The tendrils were creeping toward him now too, wrapping around his ankles. In a moment of panic, Mark tore his gaze from the mirror, just in time to see Linda push forward, her face a mask of desperation. "You don't know what it shows. It's the truth of our family," she cried. "What?" He glanced back at the mirror. The images shifted, swirling like a storm inside. There were faces in the glass, faces Mark knew but had long thought were lost. His mother, young and smiling, standing beside a man he didn't recognize, who had a sinister glint in his eyes. His breath caught in his throat. "Who is that?" he breathlessly asked, but Linda was already stepping closer, drawn to the mirror's powerful allure. "Stop!" Mark reached out, panic clawing at him, but he felt helpless. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Suddenly, another sharp burst erupted from the mirror. Mia's scream mixed with a haunting cry, echoing through the night. Mark's heart shattered as he saw her reflection morph, changing into another girl entirely. "Mia, what's happening?" Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Only the distorted echoes of distant screams resonating in the air. The shadows grew, coiling around Linda as she leaned in too close, eyes wide in shock. But then came the most shocking moment. The mirror rippled and exploded, sending a shockwave that sent everyone reeling back. As the dust settled, Mark looked towards the site of the mirror. What just happened? In place of the once ornate mirror lay a crumpled, dusty photo. A picture so faded it was barely recognizable. Mark crouched down and picked it up, frantically squinting and stepping into the rainy aftermath. His heart dropped as he recognized the figures. It was Mia, with the man from the mirror. And beside her, kneeling in the dirt, was a boy who looked uncannily like him. No. A chill washed over him, the world swaying around him. What does this mean? Before he could process this truth, Mia screamed again. But this time it was a word that sent a chill of horror through him. "Father." "Father?" Mark echoed, incredulity flooding his voice. "What do you mean?" And just as he tried to grasp the reality before him, Paul broke free from the shadows, raw and furious, bloodied but awake. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you're messing with." The air thickened as fear rushed back in. The storm was still raging, but now it felt more monumental, a climax of truths and lies converging. As Mark faced the two of them, the stakes escalated higher than ever. What were they really fighting for? The truth weighed down heavily on him, shifting the entire fabric of their entwined existence. Just when he thought he could see a way forward, something inside told him they were all on the brink of unearthing a betrayal that could unravel everything. And then he realized, icy fingers creeping up his spine, that the bond with Mia might be more complex and dangerous than he ever imagined. Would he still want to fight for her, knowing what this revelation could cost? Mark's heart raced as Paul's twisted words echoed in the air. The truth, raw, jagged, and dangerous, swirled around them like the smoke rising from the wreckage. He could feel the weight of reality crashing down. This wasn't just... "Mia, we're not pawns," Mark shouted, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We're stronger than he thinks." Mia stepped forward, a flicker of defiance lighting her eyes. "I won't let him control my life any longer." The fire in her voice broke through the tension, and for a moment it felt like hope ignited in the darkness. But Paul's laughter echoed, shrill and mocking. "You think you can run away from your blood? It's in you, Mia! You can't escape it!" Mark's fists clenched. "You don't know what you're talking about. We can choose who we are." Suddenly, a big crash sounded as part of the barn collapsed, sending debris flying. Everyone flinched, the chaos heightening the pressure closing in. "You have to listen to me," Linda yelled, stepping in front of Mark. "Paul can't be trusted. He's twisted our family's history for his own gain." The rain pelted down, soaking them all, but Linda's voice rang clear. "We're fighting for Mia, against something more than just blood." Mark looked to Mia, feeling the energy shifting. Her fear transformed into determination. "I need to confront him and understand what all this means. For us," she said, her voice steady and strong. Mark knew this was it. "I'll stand with you, Mia. Together, we'll face whatever this is." He reached for her hand, and she took it firmly. Paul's face twisted in rage. "Then you'll regret this." He lunged, but Linda stepped between them, raising her hands as if to shield them. "You'll not control this family anymore." In that moment, something incredible happened. The storm roared, and with it, a surge of energy crackled through the air. It was as if the very elements were aligning behind them, amplifying their resolve. Mark felt the power of their connection. Family, history, choice, not just blood ties or legacies. Mia shouted, a powerful command that struck against the storm. "No more! We choose to break free from your darkness." Her words echoed, and suddenly the shadows around Paul began to pull away. "No!" he screamed, panic flashing across his face. "This isn't over." The shadows dissipated, twisted into the air, and Paul stumbled back, the very foundation of his control beginning to crumble. With a final, desperate glare, he turned and fled into the darkness, swallowed whole by the storm. Mark let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "Is it over?" he asked, looking into Mia's eyes, searching for reassurance. Mia nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I think it is, but our journey doesn't end here." She glanced at the remnants of their family legacy, still swirling in the chaos around them. Linda stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "It's time for healing. We have a lot to face together." Mark wanted to cry, to laugh, to breathe a sigh of relief all at once. "Together," he echoed, gripping Mia's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of connection radiating between them. In the distance, sirens began to wail, lights flashing through the rain. The local authorities had arrived. Relief swirled in with the downpour, but questions lingered. What now? As their family began to build anew from the ashes of their past. Mark knew one thing: they would find their way through it together. For now, as the storm cleared, Mark looked at Mia, a hint of hope breaking through. "We can rewrite our story, can't we?" Mia smiled, a sparkling glimmer of strength. "Yes, we will." As the world around them faded into calm, a sense of peace began to settle. Yet, within that silence, something unspoken hung in the air. What had they truly unleashed? And that uncertainty hung like mist in the air, leaving them all wondering, would they ever shake the shadows of the past? Button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear what you thought. And don't wait another second to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how it ends. Your support makes all the difference.